everyone asks me, because this is like the topic du jour, it's what everyone wants to know. It's like, what was the secret? It's like almost as if like, you know, we're the NSA and we've like developed something and like nobody knows, or like, you know, some secret backroom negotiation between us and governments. And it's like none of that shit. We did 3 really obvious brain dead things, and the reality was we lacked enough self-awareness and ego to frankly just continue to do these very simple things over and over and over again, repetitively, monotonously, to a point where every time we used to see things move in one direction or another, we would either keep doing them or stop doing them and not second guess ourselves. Out there, it's unbelievable to me that people are trying to shroud products in this veneer of complexity that makes themselves seem like so good and so smart, and you know, I'm this fucking hipster and I'm riding the Muni in San Francisco, and look at my oolong green tea that I bought organically, and you know, look at these ripped tight skinny jeans that I bought. And it's like, you got to get over yourself. Like, measure some shit, try some shit, test some more shit, throw the stuff that doesn't work. It's not that complicated. And I see app after app after app and I get inundated. And when I downloaded it and I tried, I'm like, did you even spend 8 seconds using your own product? It's unbelievable the lack of dogfooding that happens. And so most people, when they think about growth, they think it's this convoluted thing where you're trying to generate these, you know, extra normal behaviors in people. And that's not what it's about. What it's about is a very simple, elegant understanding of product value and consumer behavior. A guy worked for me. I'm not going to say who it is because I was literally like 9 times I was going to fire this numbskull. And he came to me and said, Chamath, at eBay we had this framework. eBay, this is 2007. I'm like, eBay sucks. What can I learn from eBay? And he said, well, we had this framework we used at eBay, and we tweaked it a little bit. And what I realized was, oh my gosh, you know, there's this massive amount of complexity when expressed in simplicity can be extremely useful. And the tweaks that we made, eBay is a different product, and eBay now is a wonderful company doing really, really well. You laughed. Come on, it's doing really well. Was we sort of created a framework in which we applied those 3 very simple principles of measuring, testing, and trying things. And we said, okay, the biggest risk that we have is we alienate the people that trust us today and use the product. And when you alienate someone, what happens is it's actually not palatable generally in top-level metrics. But there's just this extremely long tail. So like anecdotally, you can look at companies and, you know, let's like not to pick on HP as an example, but you look at HP. Well, there's no product innovation right now, and they have to figure out where their growth comes from. Well, when you trace that thing back, well, it's a decision that was made maybe 5 or 6 years ago when it was all about cutting costs and optimizing for short-term revenue. And so you realize, okay, well, that's the long tail. That's how long it takes these things to manifest. Similarly, my biggest fear was we spam our users and we trick them, and it will alienate these people. You won't see it today, but you'll see it in 3 years from now or 4 years from now. And it accelerates when you compound that with a competitor who actually builds a better product that doesn't alienate people. So the most important thing that we did against our framework was I teased out virality and said, you cannot do it. Don't talk about it. Don't touch it. I don't want you to give me any product plans that revolve around this idea of virality. I don't want to hear it. What I want to hear about is the 3 most difficult and hard problems that any consumer product has to deal with. How do you get people in the front door? How do you get them to an aha moment as quickly as possible? And then how do you deliver core product value as often as possible? Things that have this amazingly steep rise and then fall off a cliff, and there are really visible examples of that today, also ignore that principle. And it's the discipline to not optimize for the thing that gives you the shortest and most immediate ROI. Because that is never the sustainable thing that allows you to build something useful. So when you boil that all up, the most important 2 high-level takeaways that we had, and after all of this stuff, was we got to eliminate ego. And ego manifests itself every day. So I talked about it earlier. It's the ego of basically living a lifestyle and a vision and like a Twitter stream than it is actually like living the life of an entrepreneur building good product and trying to deliver core product value. That takes ego, meaning you have to be comfortable not being rewarded in the short term. And then the second is to invalidate all the lore. in any given product, there's always people who strut around the office like, I have this gut feeling. It's all about gut feeling. And most people with gut feeling are fucking morons. They don't know what they're talking about. They just don't. If we lived on gut feeling, you can look at what happens when you live on gut feeling. Look at the financial markets. Look at how government works. Look at how all of these industries that are completely broken. Gut feel is not useful because most people can't predict correctly. We know this. So one of the most important things that we did was just invalidate all of the lore. As much as we didn't do stuff, all we did was disprove all of the random anecdotal nonsense that filtered around the company. Well, I think it's this, that people are using it because of that, and I want to do this. And it's like, where did you pull that out of? And you know where they pulled it out of. And they just, again, wanted to do it to go back and, reinforce a sense of ego. And a lot of people don't have a culture within a company that allows these two things to happen. And if you can't be extremely clinical and extremely unemotionally detached from the thing that you're building, you will make these massive mistakes and things won't grow because you don't understand what's happening. It takes a really special type of person to not believe the bullshit, and an even more special person to not conflate luck and skill. You have to be, if you're in this type of job, in my opinion, relatively cynical, and you can be confident. Fuck, you can be arrogant. It doesn't really matter. But you can't believe your own BS. Because when you do, you start to compound these massively structural mistakes that, again, don't expose core product value and then don't allow real engagement and real product value to emerge. You don't listen to consumers because you think it's all about your gut. You don't bother doing any of the traditional, straightforward, obvious things that would allow you to answer very straightforward, obvious questions. And you lose yourself. Core product value is really elusive and most products don't have any. I actually fundamentally believe that. But I also believe that most products can have some value. So when you put those two things together, again, you go back to the discipline of, do you really know what you're building and why? And do you really understand how to marry things that may be non-intuitive for people, but really are the important things that people need? So I remember when we were launching in Asia, we created a team. So the history of Facebook, right, just very quickly. So I started Facebook. My team launched Facebook platform, huge success. Then, we do this big deal with Microsoft. We raise a huge round, and at the tail end of that round, it's like, oh, well, we're going to launch a bunch of ad products to validate this valuation, and we're going to do all this stuff. And my team goes out and we build 3 products. And again, talk about conflating luck and skill. I had all these people, all of our best guys, working on this product with me, which we called social ads and Beacon. And then we had another thing doing sponsored stories, and then we had another team focused on an online self-service ad product. Most of the resources in Mindshare, none of the resources in Mindshare. 8 people, our best engineers, product managers, 2 people. Fast forward to today, all of the revenue, billions of dollars, scaling inordinately, lawsuits, FTC suing us, people telling me on the New York Times I lied about how cross-site scripting worked. I'm not going to lie about cross-site scripting to the New York Times. New York Times, okay? You guys? I mean, really? Like, that's what I'm going to lie to you guys about? So stupid. Anyways, it just goes to show you, at that point, we were seeing this what looked like monotonically negative growth, and we were like, oh my God, what's happening? It was like 25, 30 million people. So we came up with this idea, okay, we're going to focus on growth, and we went and created a team. As part of that, we said we're going to internationalize, we're going to launch, we're just going to go everywhere all over the world. And so we used, again, we dog-fooded our own product, and we used Facebook platform to create this crowdsourcing translation, which was really successful. But long story short, we get to Japan, Korea, and it's a constant refrain. I go around the valley, I talk to some folks who've done this before, the guys at Yahoo, the guys at Google, the guys at eBay, just to get a sense of how did you think about it? And all these people had the same answer. Well, we take these MBAs who really want to live on an expat package, And we send them out there. And you're just like, okay, well, that's not the right answer. So first thing we did was we hired only native people in those native markets. So I had these guys, trying to, I have an MBA from Harvard. I really want to spend time around. I'm like, get the fuck out of my office. Go to ba.com, buy a ticket, get out of my face. You're not going to travel on the company dime. But you'd hire all these people natively. So we had this amazing guy that we hired in Japan who raised his hand. He said, it's really important to actually have specific elements of the profile be different. Because in Japan, the cultural dynamic is different. And so we said, well, what does that mean to you? And he said, well, maybe it means, putting your blood type on the profile. And you're like, that makes no sense. But it makes no sense to us. But it makes sense to him. And so, we developed this flexibility where we're like, okay, well, maybe the connections we're trying to make in that market are a little too elusive. So this product that worked here just didn't have any context here. And so you would say, well, Facebook has clear product value. But in Japan at the time, it didn't. You have to work backwards from what is the thing that people are here to do? What is the aha moment that they want? Why can I not give that to them as fast as possible? Measuring that in days is unrealistic. Measuring it in hours is unrealistic. Measuring it in minutes is necessary but not sufficient. But how do you get that to seconds? How do you get that to hundreds of milliseconds? That's how you win. And if you can't even understand what the thing does, optimizing all of this stuff over time, I think it just creates these really bad, crappy companies that all they do is just spam and destroy the internet for everybody else. So to this end, this is really what I wanted to leave you with, which is you probably expected a bunch of formulas and stuff. Tough. You have to really understand this. And go back to that first slide. Detached, egoless, focused on what's important, not living the hype, not trying to follow some lifestyle, but doing what you think is important, focusing on core value, ruthlessly prioritizing, and getting people who believe in these things. These are the values that we originally wrote in terms of how we recruit. Again, may seem like a crazy thing, but for all the CEOs here, all of you people should be writing this down. This is how you should recruit. It worked for us. I give this to every single company I invest in. It works for most of them. And these are things that in my mind are so obvious, blindingly, glaringly obvious. And people make mistakes around these things all the time. A very high IQ, self-explanatory. A strong sense of purpose are people that will not buckle under short-term pressure. A relentless focus on success, just so competitive that you will do whatever it takes to win. Aggressive and competitive people who always respect the person but constantly challenge the idea. A high-quality bar that borders on perfectionism, just nothing is ever good. You win, something improves by 10 basis points, now it needs to improve by 20 basis points, now it needs to improve by 1%. That kind of living in that world is just a really great dynamic. People who are comfortable taking something that works and saying it doesn't work here and let's just reset and start again. And it just takes a lot of courage. When that guy came to me in Japan and said, hey, I think we need to introduce a blood type, or our team in Korea came with a bunch of different ideas, or our team in India came up with this really clever way of engaging with Facebook over a phone. You have to be willing to take yourself out of your own biases and find people who are willing to come up with things that, again, are unconventional. Another reason why you can't live in the bubble that is the valley. There are too many problems and too many products that are focused on solving the needs of the 1% of the 1% that live here. And the reality is there are 7 billion people in the world. Most have never even used a PC. Most are coming straight into a world of phones. They're living in an entirely different context. They have completely different socioeconomic paradigms. And you have to be able to be sensitive enough to empathize with where they're coming from. High integrity, I think, speaks for itself. It's really easy to kind of, focus on short-term results. And I just don't think there's enough of the long-term thinking. Being able to take some arrows along the way in the short term because you're trying to build something for the long term. And having a culture and set of values where that's rewarded. Perfect example of this is LinkedIn. Reid Hoffman's an extremely good friend of mine. That is an unbelievable company. Built over 10 years, 11 years of just working. Friendster comes out of nowhere. Reid didn't panic. MySpace comes out of nowhere. We didn't panic. Facebook came out of nowhere. We didn't panic. Just built a great product. We just kept working and working. Did not take the short, easy way out. And you have to respect that, because when those guys win, they win. And they win in scale, and they win for a long time. Surround yourself with good people seems obvious, but I see a lot of people who are just like not comfortable recruiting people that are better than them. The best thing that I did was recruit 4 people to my team. My original growth team was James Wang, who is an engineering lead on Facebook platform, Naomi Gleit, who's the most tenured employee at Facebook and one of our best product managers, Alex Schultz, who is this unbelievable sort of crazy growth guy, and Javier Olivan, who ran international for me, and Blake Ross, who's a product manager who also founded Firefox. All of these guys are dramatically better than I was. All I did was enable a framework and create discipline. And they all thrived. And the great thing when I left was they didn't miss a beat. And that's really, really a good sign. And then the last thing is, cares about building real value over perception. I like oolong green tea as much as the next guy. It doesn't make anything happen. I like skinny jeans too. More on girls and guys, but whatever. It doesn't mean anything. And right now we're living in a world where you can get distracted by things that don't matter, and the superficiality of how you think things should be done versus the things that need to get done. And that takes a lot of courage.